What's happening, guys? I'm Coby Chowan here with Craig McCoy, and welcome to our latest Tuesday training, where every week we bring to you a live training from lead gen and AI all the way to business planning and goal setting.
You have the new version and the old version. We collaborate to make it awesome.
If you want to join and jump on the next Tuesday training, join our school platform below. It's completely free. Click the link below, and we'll see you there.
All right. So Coby and I haven't talked to him about what today's going to be about. So I'm kind of flying blind a little bit. Coby, do you have much to talk about today?
Yes, we have a link.ai training,
Oh,
and
well,
everybody's
there you
supposed to
go.
be on their computers and doing it side by side with us. So we can walk them through how to create like the listing presentation, how to create buyer tours, a little bit slower version of what I've been doing.
Before we jump in, do you mind if Kathy is here and she wanted to say a few things? Are you around here, Kathy?
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
great. Hi,
San
everybody.
Francisco.
Let's go golf.
Let's do
I
it.
got I, I got rid of my vertigo, so I can golf now. So,
Oh, perfect.
yeah. So last week or the week before, my partner Jen got on. She talked about the best kept secret in home warranties, which is seller's coverage. So, if you guys have any questions on that, reach out to us. What I wanted just to mention today is how many times do you have a home inspection that comes in? Oh, and I do the home warranties in NHD for anybody that I don't know yet. Been doing it 37 years. But if you do a home inspection and it comes in and it's not so good, that's what home warranties are created for. And I have talked so many buyers off the fence, so send them my way. So first thing that happens is home inspector writes at its life expectancy. Well, that's okay. Even if it's 30, 50 years old, the home warranty, all we ask is that's good, safe working order. So having that home protection is kind of to help you close that deal, and we take care of it from then. Now, of course, if a home inspector says, there's something going on here, have it checked by a licensed tech, you should do that. But we can really help out because a lot of the inspectors are writing in, oh, this is old Freon. Now we have A2L that just came out. Well, with Fidelity, we even cover the A2L Freon. So if the coil doesn't work when it closes, and then and of course it has to work at least once for the buyer when it closes, and then it won't match the new condenser because of the Freon type. So now the condenser has to be replaced. And we have a really good flyer on that also that we can forward to you that you can give to your buyers. So if you need any of them talked off the fence, letting them know how the home warranty works. I even had one last week where I suggested that they give the homeowner 2-year home warranty and really save the deal. So if you're talking air conditioners or things like that, that's why you have a home protection. Just make sure everything's in good, safe working order, and then use that seller's coverage to set yourself apart. So anyway, I'm a call away if you ever need me or a text. But yeah, definitely don't let a home inspection, if it's something that home warranties cover, kill your deal.
Awesome. And this is kind of what we keep talking about, building the team around you guys from title to home warranty to escrow to lenders. I've been using Kathy now for 28 out of her 37 years. So I started when I was 2, so she started when she was 3. But for real, I mean, it's a huge deal. Not to take advantage of Kathy by any means, but when there's an issue, she's a phone call away. And so it's a huge deal when it matters. Obviously, when it doesn't, it doesn't. So when you guys are writing your buyer contracts, put that in there. Most of the time, on the seller side, it's it, you can put it in there on the seller coverage for sure, as she just talked about. But more importantly, on the buyer side, because when stuff goes wrong and it's your buyer, you want to be able to make that phone call. And again, just out of pure respect on the listing side, if you can get her, all the better. So
Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
that's my plug. So
Thank you.
all right. So I guess if we can jump into Bill and Tim, if you guys are around. Kathy, if you want to hang out, you're cool to sit to hang out. If not, we'll talk
Okay,
to
I'll
somebody who go
listen in a
golfing.
little bit. I love what you guys do and say and everything. So, all right,
Well,
thanks.
hang on and watch Kobe's little AI tutorial because it's pretty rad. So,
Okay, cool. Because that's all stuff that we can use too. So it's amazing. Thank you.
cool. All right, no worries. You want to jump into Bill and Tim for mortgage, or do you want to go straight to training?
Bill and Tim.
Okay, Bill and Tim. I
All
see
right.
Bill.
Right, Tim,
Bill, you want to go or want me to go, Bill?
started off with the market, and then I'll talk about
All right. The fund mortgage market. We're still hanging in there. I was going to briefly kind of cover where we've been for the last 6 months since beginning of the year. Prior to the Iran thing, January, February, we were below 6%. War started in February 28th. Our conflict started, and then late April, we're still hanging in there, like 6.8, 6.25. By May, we're at 6.75, and now we're back down to like maybe mid sixes. I'll go over specific rates momentarily. Kind of the sweet spot where we need to be, I think, for the housing market, based on all my readings and experts, is under 6.25%. For that to happen, oil needs to keep hanging in there, normalizing, and then the 10-year yield needs to cooperate. What's going on right now? I mean, oil fell. I would have thought rates would have came down with the reduction of oil prices, but the reason why it kind of hasn't done that, the Fed kind of pivoted. That is the Federal Reserve, and they went from kind of a dovish to more of a hawkish tone. And until the Fed kind of eases up, and hopefully doesn't forecast a hike in federal funds rate. Right now, they went from like a 24% probability to almost 77, almost 80%. And that kind of absorbed most of the benefit from lower oil. So both forces, oil and kind of Fed policy, have to cooperate to get rates meaningfully lower than we are right now. And until that happens, we're going to kind of keep seeing this sort of just stagnation of rates sort of dropping down and then going up and then dropping down, but really not moving back down to where we were before everything. In March 2026, there's one rate cut that was forecasted in 2026. And then by June, there was a rate hike that was possible. And where we are today is almost 75 to 80% chance of a rate hike by December. So that's up 25% from just a month ago. So really, the Fed is really kind of driving force right now. And so they kind of have a different position and maybe back off. We're not going to probably see a whole lot of change in mortgage rates coming down a lot unless they really do kind of an about face on stuff. And then what things going on in the strait and more ships or tankers being bombed and over the weekend and so forth, that's not going to help stuff. In regards to where rates are right now on a 30-year fixed conventional loan at about a point cost, we're at 6.25%. And a no point loan, we're at about 6.625%. And then flipping over to government FHA VA at about a point cost, we're at 5.75%. And on a no point loan, we're at 6.125%. And that's where we are right now for mortgage rates. Questions, concerns, comments?
Where are rates going to be at in 30 days from now?
I don't see much of a difference where we are right now, honestly. I know I was really optimistic earlier this year, but until I think we get some reports coming in where the economy maybe isn't as strong as the Fed says or anything else, I think we're going to be kind of hanging steady, kind of just seeing this up and down a little bit. So not a big change unless something really goes really, really good or really, really bad.
All right. No questions for Tim on that, so I'll jump in. So one thing that comes across sometimes that you guys might find is you'll have a buyer who wants to buy a place and it is a complete trash bin. The house is torn up, maybe it doesn't have some drywall, maybe something that needs pretty serious repairs that won't clear an appraisal. So what that means on an FHA appraisal, it's a little bit more stringent. So they're looking for health and safety hazards. If the appraiser sees that there might be termite damage or there might be a roof issue, the appraiser will call that out, and in that point you'll be forced to get an inspection on those items, right? So FHA is a little more stringent on that. On a conventional loan, they're still looking for health and safety hazards in the appraisal, but it's a lot less stringent. But the house needs to have flooring, it needs to have drywall. You can't have open electrical wires, clear, clear, obvious water damage, things like that. That kind of stuff is still going to get called out. So, if your client sees a place like that and they just think the price is so good that they still want to buy it, they want to fix it, they want to rent it out, or maybe they just think like, oh, I can patch this up and live here, whatever it might be. In those instances, it's going to require, in order to get any meaningful financing, it's going to require some sort of a renovation loan. So we're working on one of these right now. And there's a few ways you can go with this. So FHA and as well as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac both have renovation loans. They take a little bit longer to get done, and interest rates about 0.75% higher than a traditional conventional or FHA loan. But if it's FHA, it needs to be owner occupied. But what they do is they're going to come in, they're going to say, okay, bring your contractor in, and it does need to be a licensed contractor. They're going to vet that person, not too crazy, but they're going to vet them a little bit. And when you go in, the contractor is going to come back with a bid on the work. So when we submit the loan, we're going to give that bid to the lender. They're going to give it to the appraiser, and the appraiser is going to do an after repair value appraisal. So they're going to say, okay, based on this work that you're going to do on this house, this is what it's going to be worth once all the repairs are completed. And so that after repair value appraisal is really the basis for any renovation loan. So what's great about these is that you can literally build equity right into your house. Maybe you're putting down on the FHA loan and the conventional loan, it can be 5% down, small down payments to do this. But if it's, there are some instances where we can't do the FHA or conventional, you'll have to do a private money loan. We have a really great line for that too, an internal link private money credit line, which is that's what we're working on now for this other client, because it's an investment property, it's multifamily. But basically, they go in, they'll do the after repair value, and then they're going to lend based on the total of the purchase price plus the cost for the work. So they're going to lend you the money to buy the house, and they're also going to lend you the money to do the work. As the work goes through, they dole that money out in sections until it's finished. And at that time, most people will refinance out of that loan into something with a little bit lower rate. But at least on the conventional and FHA loans, you can keep that loan and ride it out if rates were to have gone up. So it's definitely a little bit more involved. But if you have buyers out there who are looking at fixers and like really, really intense fixers, but they need financing, this is a way to do it. One thing I will say too, like maybe they, again, because the contractors need to be licensed. So maybe the contractor comes in and the work that we're doing is just enough to make it livable and get it passable. And then if your client can do the work on their own, they can finish up. Just need to make sure that after repair value is high enough for the lender. So I thought I would bring that up because it's something that we're working on right now. Let me know if you have any questions.
Bill, you just blow everybody away every single time. You just are too detailed.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to go over some of the stuff that we're coming across, and it's, that we get our cookie cutter loans, which are awesome because they take up way less time than some of these other ones, and it seems that typically the ones that we're doing the most work on are the smaller deals for people who are less qualified or are doing something crazy like this. But that's what we're here for. We're not gonna run people off just because their deal's tough.
What has been the hardest loan you've done this year?
Well, I'm in the middle of it right now. And it's so stupid, honestly, because I have these clients and they make almost $1 million a year. They're a doctor and like a head nurse at Cedars-Sinai, very high end people. They have this $4 million house. They want to buy a duplex. So we get into escrow on the duplex, and I had a HELOC all set up for them that was on their primary residence. Their biggest issue is they didn't have enough money for the down payment on the duplex. So we were trying to do like an owner occupied thing with their daughter living there, but she couldn't really bring enough to the table. I mean, we went round and round on this. And so it's like, all right, they're going to take a second mortgage on their primary house to use that money for the down payment on the duplex. We get to the very end of the HELOC and I get told by the underwriter, oh, sorry, they have an interest only loan on their first mortgage. We can't do this. And this is like 3 weeks into the process. So they should have caught this right up front. I'm like, what's the deal? There's got to be a way for an exception, something. No, nothing, no flexibility whatsoever. And yeah, so trying to find another second mortgage for them has been really tough because they got a $450,000 loan from their employer, which was like a sign-on bonus, and they don't have to make any payments on it. It's like free money. So as long as he works at the hospital for 10 years, that loan goes away. So you're not going to pay that one off. But most every other second mortgage lender doesn't want another loan behind them. That employer loan is willing to go into the third position, but these lenders, for whatever reason, don't like that, and it's just been a nightmare. But I've got two on Thursday. I finally got two different lenders who told me that they can get it done, and we're like, they're still dragging their feet, and we had to lift our loan contingency before we had the money set up, which is scary, and we're trying to stretch out the escrow as long as we can. But so total freaking nightmare on a file that you would think that there would never be any sort of issue on. So I mean, the underwriting is tough. You just never quite know for sure, even when something looks like a slam dunk. Sometimes things happen. So that's been the toughest one. It's definitely taken a few months off my life in the past. You know.
And when like somebody's like talking to a buyer, trying to vet a buyer, if it's a first time agent or first time buyer, is there anything that you kind of like jump in front of or ask questions to prevent these crazy files from happening, or is it going to just be something that happens in escrow? So usually it pops up.
No, we're doing everything we can to jump in front of it. Like on this one, I pre-flighted these files with the
Yeah.
lender, and then they still came back at the end and screwed me. So that's been brutal. But but yes, we definitely jump out in front of things. I mean, credit is an obvious one. We have the ability to do rapid rescore on people's credit reports. So especially with first time buyers, a lot of them don't know a lot about their credit, or maybe they have some credit card debt. You can raise somebody's credit score by over 100 points by having them just pay down some credit card debt. I mean, I did it myself when I bought my house. Like it's definitely a tool that's really helpful. Self-employed income, employment gaps. It's just being thorough with people up front. Usually we can suss out any of the potential issues, but it's good. That's why it's good to actually make sure that we're able to get in touch with them early on in the process, so we're not working through these things while we're in escrow.
Actually, I have sort of a kind of a tertiary, like just a tangentially related question there that I was going to bring up this week. And it's like the perfect segue is as I said, I'm trying to exit some of the properties I own out of state. And so it's not necessarily about what I'm like buying or representing here, but it brought up the question for me this week is like the agent's role as far as vetting people before they get to you. And so my situation is strange. It is a house that is not, or a building that isn't fully renovated. So yes, it does need drywall and some other things. And we're afraid that even though I got an appraisal in the process to help us decide what to price it as, it's going to be difficult for a buyer to get financing on it. And so I started to offer seller financing. I really don't want to do that. I want them to just go find a loan, whether it's hard money or whatever elsewhere.
Mhm.
But we're afraid of them getting, well, anyway, so I guess the question is kind of like for Coby and Andrew as well is what is the agent's role do you guys expect in sort of pre-vetting a buyer? So what just happened was we were about to go under contract and with seller financing, and all of a sudden the buyer was just blown away that I was going to ask for a credit check. And I just felt like, isn't that something an agent should prepare? I wonder what the agent's role is in that. I felt like there should have been more preparation before we get all the way into this contract that someone's surprised about something in the mortgage process. So obvious.
Yeah, I mean that's unique that they would be surprised that you're looking at their
Right?
credit.
And they're a small business owner. So they probably don't W-2 themselves. And there's probably many ways that they can make
Well,
numbers look a certain way. I don't know.
well, and I mean that just makes it that much more. If they can't show really strong, clear income, because even if their numbers look good, who knows what their expenses are, depending on what kind of business they run, right? That's what underwriters are looking at. That's why self-employed people are tough, because your revenue might be $1 million, but your expenses might be $950,000, and you don't really have any money left over. And of course, most people bump up their expenses, but that's what's going on there. But the credit check is important because you need to see that these people pay their bills. That's the point of the credit check. I'm actually dealing with this other lady, and and she has this investment property. She's got her primary residence pretty much paid off. It's $1 million, but she doesn't have any credit. She thought it was good to not have any credit, and it's like she needs a cosigner. Like there's nobody knows whether or not she pays her bills, or that if she does get something that she has to pay her bills on, that she's going to pay it. So that's why that's important. It's just like, hey, we need to know what your history is. Do you
Right.
pay your debt or not? But as far as like preparing people, um, I mean, I think it's just maybe just it doesn't need to be too much, and we can handle most of that on our end, but just let them know like, hey, they are going to need to look at your credit. They're going to have questions about your credit. They're going to have questions about your income. They're going to ask you a lot of stuff that feels really personal. But this is what it takes if somebody's going to lend you hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's kind of the key piece. It's like, just
Right.
try to put that in context. Like if you were going to lend somebody $1 million, how much would you want to know about that person?
So, like, Coby, if you're representing a seller, what's the line as far as how you vet a buyer's ability? I mean, I know there's like proof of funds once you go in, or do you expect proof of funds before they even submit it, like with an offer? How do you, like, what's your vet? How do you vet, I guess, as an agent,
We
the
always
best
do
way?
proof of funds and then a pre-approval letter or a pre-qual, and then we'll call the lender. And based on that first kind of conversation with their loan officer, if I feel like that loan officer is kind of sketchy or doesn't actually pull their credit or know what he's talking about, I'll connect the client with Bill or Tim and do a cross call, or have Bill and Tim call the other loan officer. But I always do proof of funds, ask about who the buyer is, how they're coming up with cash, all that kind of stuff. And then, I'll call the loan officer and just say, like, have you done actual desktop underwriting? Have you seen their credit reports? Have you actually pre-approved this person? Or is this all just kind of word of mouth? And
Right.
then based on what he
So if
says.
you're like, let's say you're even sitting at an open house or you're just giving a tour to a potential buyer, do you have any, and with the agent, obviously, but um, do you have any kind of soft questions that you generally ask to start to gauge early?
Yeah, just where are you at in the process? Have you already been connected with the loan officer, or you be buying cash? And based on that answer, if like, oh, I've already been connected with the loan officer, great. What's your budget? What are you pre-approved for? And it's like, oh, I don't know yet. And then it's like, obviously they haven't really gone through all of the steps.
Right.
If like, oh, we're buying cash, like, great. How much cash do you have? Is a very easy way to ask it. Uh, it's like, oh yeah, I've been connected with the loan officer and I'm approved for this much. I'm putting this much down, and like I have this cool program that I'm going to be able to use because of X, Y, and Z. It's like that person knows what they're talking about. They know what type of loan they're getting, why they're getting that specific type of loan. They're probably legit. If they're like, oh yeah, like I checked out on Zillow and it says I'm approved for a $2 million house, I'm like, I don't really trust it
Call
at all.
Bill.
And before you submit offer, before we open escrow, we'll definitely
Right.
cross qual on that.
Because it's weird,
And
like when you said you asked them how much cash do they have. I guess those are the things I feel like I'm getting over that of like, it feels awkward to ask that sometimes. I'm trying to figure out the sweet spot of asking without,
Yeah, I
I
think
mean, it's a
more it's
legitimate
like
question. It's just,
leading with curiosity instead of
okay.
like, can you afford this house? Or just like, oh, you're buying cash. Like, great. Like, what's your good price range? Like, what are you like looking to put into a house?
I personally like just, can you afford this house?
Yeah.
a
Um,
good question is always like, what's a payment? We're like,
mhm.
the way I put it, it's like, of course we're going to try and get you the lowest payment out there, but like, what's the top end of what you feel like you can do,
Mm. And
because
as a
that
seller's agent, can you ask that to the buyer at all, or do you have to go ask the buyer's agent?
I usually talk to the agent and I would ask like what they're comfortable paying.
Yeah.
Um, to me, that would be like just more, are they pre-approved? And then talk to the lender about that. Um, like
Yeah,
we
the
talked.
only reason I would ask that is like, if somebody's telling you, oh, I'm $7,000 is all I want to pay, and you're showing them, $2 million homes, like, you have to. It's just a
Right.
reality check, just to make it, because some people might seem like they know they've got a good idea, but they're way off, so that reality check can be helpful before you show it.
Yeah, that's I think what I'm looking at is like how do you quickly or the quickest way possible try to suss out if people are realistic and what they're
We
looking at and wasting your time.
we just got an offer on one of these multifamily buildings, and the guy submitted with a pre-approval for 20% down. and was approved for like 1.5. And I called, I was like, hey, is this looking good? Does he have any reserves after this? I called the other loan officer. He's like, oh no, if it comes in any under what the appraised value is or what the asking price is, we're not gonna be able to move forward with it. He has no more cash. Like this is like fully
Oh,
capping him. And so we were like, if this appraises at 1.4, the deal's dead. And so we decided to go with a different person who was a little bit under on price, but was coming in all cash. And so just kind of asking that as well. You don't want somebody that's going to be gets to day 21, appraisal comes back and it comes in a little bit low and they can't come up with that
right.
difference, or rates jump a tiny bit and they haven't locked their rate yet and they can't buy the house anymore. So kind of just try to get overall strength of the buyer. And that's usually me talking to the other loan officer, not like
Okay.
obviously the buyer.
Yeah, Dan,
All
I
right.
think at the end of the day, it is like as the listing agent, it is a big part of your job, like vetting the offers that come in and making sure you gather as much information as you can to see which offer is the most viable. I think I mentioned this on one of the other calls, like telling my seller who, which loan officer I had a good conversation with, which one gave me confidence. Like those are all
Mhm.
big pieces of information. If two offers are neck and neck, but one loan officer is way more responsive and can verify X, Y, and Z for me,
Right.
I'm going to tell that to the seller. Like it's a big part of it. But obviously that this assumes that there's financing and other parties in place. Like when it comes to seller financing, at the end of the day, that is a benefit to the buyer. So
Mhm.
if they are hesitant to give any information or to go through a vetting process, like the seller is now the lender. If the buyer is hesitant to give any info, then that's a huge red flag for us. We've
Right.
had many seller financing opportunities, even deals that have gone through that have fallen out, where it all depends on the buyer's willingness. And because they turn into a borrower from the seller, they need to act as a borrower and do the credit checks, show the proof of funds, show pay stubs. Like they just become a borrower in any sense. So yeah, any sort of like withholding information is a big red flag when it comes to seller
Right.
financing.
Yeah. And it kind of brought up just the larger question for me of like the agent's role and just pre-vetting buyers in general.
Yeah,
And like I kept thinking too, like if you're sitting in open house and you have potential buyers come in who are unrepresented and maybe they
yeah,
even want to remain unrepresented, is like what's the line and what questions you ask to see if a deal is viable with them early
yeah.
on, like prior to even getting
It
anything
really,
else in writing.
yeah. It is a sensitive topic. You want to be,
Right.
like Coby was saying, like more curious. It's actually funny. I asked my buddy the other day was looking to buy a house with his wife. I was talking to his wife and I was asking if they were pre-approved, kind of like just asking those basic questions. And it almost insulted her that I assumed that they were getting financing. She was like, "Oh no, like we can pay cash, like we're good to go." Like kind of pissed off, a little bit snobby about it. But it's just an example of like you want to be pretty delicate with those questions and always,
Right.
always ask like, "Can you pay cash for this?" Because some buyers are kind of have a stick up their ass. So just be
Good to
sensitive,
know.
be delicate, ask more curious questions, and kind of like keep a broad range so that you're not just assuming that someone needs financing. Don't
Mhm.
assume that someone can pay cash.
That's a great
Um,
point.
yeah, and I think it all depends on your client too. Like if you're working with a seller, we have had some sellers who say, "I want to be fully involved in the vetting process. Like I basically don't trust you guys. I want to look at everything myself." We've had other sellers that are like, "I trust exactly what you guys tell me, and you tell me what offer is best, what buyer is best." So really, it's all case by case when it comes to vetting and how involved you should be. But it is a big part of being a listing agent, I would say.
Right. Yeah, it's getting past asking questions that you feel like are somewhat personal, I guess, is a little bit of the hesitation there. It's hard.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think there's any unpersonal questions when you're dealing with people's finances and you're
Right.
representing them or you're representing a listing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're representing the seller or the buyer, you need to have knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It is extremely important. I won't take out a buyer without them showing finances to me. And if I'm representing, why would I waste my time? Why
Right,
not
right. Oh, you mean
somebody?
somewhat when you're representing the buyer. I see what you mean.
Right. And if I
Right.
meet somebody at an open house, the open house is just to get to know somebody. I'm not going to ask a bunch of questions about finances there. I would do it immediately afterwards. And any listing that I have and I get an offer, if I'm disappointed if the lender is not calling me after they get the offer. And so I think when it comes to representing a seller, that you can ask pretty much any question you need to ask to that lender and to see proof before you go under contract. Nothing worse than going under contract and having to fall out. This is
Right.
just business. That's all it is.
Mhm.
And everybody's time is valuable, and that's the way that I look at it.
I've got a question for you, Sue, because
Definitely.
that's something that I always make a point to, when I'm working with a buyer, to call the listing agent after the offer goes in or make sure they put me on the email. So I'm, touching base early. Do you get that up from a lot of agents when you're listing a property? Do you get a lot of
Not
that calls?
not enough agents.
No.
I can tell
Okay.
you that right now. That distinguishes to me between a good agent and an
Mhm.
agent that doesn't. There's a whole package: the listing offer, a letter that goes along with it, your pre-approval, your proof of funds, and then a follow-up phone call from the lender. I think that has sealed the deal on various, and I think that Coby and Andrew probably can talk. That has probably sealed the deal when I have the lender call. They know that I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. That's
Yes,
good.
100%. I mean, that's why we preach it every time. Like working with Bill and Tim, they're the guys that proactively talk to the listing agents. Like it really does carry a lot of weight. And any good listing agent will actually take that into account. So
Mhm.
I honestly think that a lot of listing agents will see a number that they really like or they think their seller will like, and they jump on that offer but haven't done enough vetting. So it really comes down to who the buyer is working with to actually push that deal through. And when lenders don't respond or don't know or barely have any info on the client, like that's an offer I wouldn't even consider at that point. Like that's not looking out for the best interest of your seller. It's not the most viable offer. I think the most viable offer has a lot of credibility that comes from the actual lender or where the funds are coming from.
I agree. I was just I was co-listing a house and we had a lot of multiple offers and really was important on, who can close the deal. I mean, the lenders that called, that the lenders that sent paperwork I mean, it mattered to the seller in our case, for sure.
Got to have a good lender, got to have a good loan officer, guys. It'll strengthen your offer even if it's lower than the rest. You have someone like Bill or Tim that's advocating for your client. I think that is a huge, huge plus. So work with Bill and Tim.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hey, Tim, I was gonna talk, or not Tim, Bill, I was gonna talk a little bit about our deal where
Mhm.
we came up with it was only $110 difference in the monthly payment.
Yeah. Yeah. I got a little bit thought I had the condition down or the guideline down in my head, but apparently on a manufactured home, on a regular conventional loan, you can do 3% down for a first time buyer, but that doesn't apply for a manufactured home unless it falls in with it has to be like a newer home and it falls under certain building criteria. So I was pricing my loan out and I got pricing on it at 3% down. And that's what we talked to the buyer about first. And then as it turned out, because it was an older mobile home, couldn't do that. But the pivot wasn't too difficult really. Like um, when it comes to when it comes to the mortgage, right? We always have the ability to give back a credit to the buyer. So the way that we do that is we increase the interest rate. So for the lender, they say, okay, if you want a lower rate, you can pay us points. If you want that rate that's kind of in the middle, you don't pay any points, but we're not going to give you back any credits. Or if you take a higher rate, then we'll give you back some credits towards your closing costs. So that was the fix in order to keep their down payment and their out of pocket the same as it would have been on the 3% loan. It just bumped up the rate a little bit and the payment a little bit. But they were also putting an extra 2% into the equity of the house. They still decided to just go ahead and put more money down and take the lower interest rate, but at least we had an option for them. Josh, you got your hand up?
Yes, sir, I do. I don't know if it was covered because I had to hop off for the last about 5 minutes ago here, but it is our responsibility. I think someone already said this. Actually, Coby said it, and I think Andrew said it, and I believe Sue said it. Obviously, it's our responsibility as listing agents to, work in the best interest of our seller. But I wanted to speak to, I actually didn't catch her name. I was trying to find it. to speak to her. She had the question about, can we just ask them how much cash they have? Obviously, there's tact that we need to have. And if it's an open house and there's other people around, then we shouldn't ask personal questions. We should kind of pull them to the side or get their number. But I will say we need to come with the established confidence from the get-go that they need to prove to us it's their responsibility to prove to us and our client, the seller, that they have the ability to close. And so being specific and cutting with your questions and determined with your questions, it weeds out a ton of the crap. Because people will play games with their lending. Obviously, calling the lender is important, but sometimes they get their lender in on it too, in on basically ballooning that they are more well qualified, but they actually don't have the approval. For example, I don't know if anyone said this. I would think maybe Sue could have said this, but I didn't listen in. I missed a few minutes. You want to ask also if they have DU approval, if they are fully underwritten. Is your loan fully underwritten? Which many times they're not. But if they say yes, they say absolutely yes, then they've gone to a certain level with their lender. And Bill, you can clarify this too, when we can say they are fully underwritten. But asking, is your loan fully underwritten? You have all of your deposit funds, correct? All the deposit funds you need, do you have them? Or are you getting a gift? These are all specific questions that you can ask. And so something may come up. I had one where they were doing a refi for their deposit funds. And so that refi added time on our closing timeline that it was actually, this is on Paseo Bonita, Bill. So that was
Yeah, I remember.
that ended up creating an issue, and none of us really caught. We were under the understand. We really were in the understanding that we were going to get those funds. They came forward with it, but unfortunately, it was Rocket Mortgage, and Rocket Mortgage doesn't give updates, or at least they don't give great updates. And so the original where the funds were coming from for that down payment, we were delayed essentially another week from where we should have been, which they still were able to close. We had confidence to close. They had all their contingencies removed, but everybody, 3 properties, had to wait in line for that first refi to go through. So being specific with your questions is not only is it in our sellers' best interest, but it's essential having the right questions. It's essential to setting us apart and choosing the right offer. And there will be times where you have maybe not in the near future, but with the right property, where you will have multiple offers, and you need to be very critical with the method in which they're closing and the type of loan and that they're underwritten. So anyways, I just wanted to speak to that.
No, that's so helpful. And it's interesting because I'm a newly licensed agent, but I'm a pretty experienced buyer and seller. And it's been interesting to me because I usually worked with this is out of state, so I'm not doing it myself, but the broker I work with on commercial stuff vets the buyers so well. And I'm so appreciative now. I'm seeing how good he was when he would call me and say, this person, he said it before, this person's a lower offer, but they have this strong talking about, the underwriting and the lender. And real quick, what did you mean by, what was DU?
Yeah, so DU is automated underwriting. So this is actually a good thing to touch on. Yeah, so Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have what's called their automated underwriting systems, or AUS. Fannie Mae's is called DU, which is desktop underwriter. Freddie Mac's is desktop operator, or some DO. But or no,
Loan prospector, LP.
Loan prospector, sorry, LP. But basically the way that the process goes is that we take in all of the client's information, all of their income, all of their assets, their credit report, all that stuff. We plug that into our processing system, and then it gets run through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac's automated underwriting system. And so that's the first step of underwriting, and that's what the lenders follow if they're doing a conventional loan or a government loan. So basically, the automated underwriting system gets run, we get an approval, then the loan gets submitted to the lender, and they're just checking the documents to make sure that they match up what we had input into the system. So the DU can be manipulated. If somebody plugs in numbers that just might happen to be a little bit higher than what's really there or whatnot, you can get a DU that might not be accurate, but it still at least shows that there's some, there's been some progress on that. And, if we're cross qualifying and, we have some concerns, then we can always ask, hey, send us over their pay stubs or W-2s, and we can verify that the DU looks good. But the DU can also help show you, one thing to really look for on there is their debt to income ratio. if you see somebody and their debt to income ratio shows 49% on there, that's a sign that like, okay, this one is they're very close to not being able to be approved. And then you can send these over to us and we'll take a look at them and look for any red flags. But so just having the DU isn't quite enough. It's better if, those things that you can see their credit score on there. Typically, if they send you the whole document, you can see the debt to income ratio, and those are going to be the key pieces. But yeah,
good info. Thank you.
Hey, just to touch back on what Josh was saying, I think that Danny, you shouldn't be afraid to ask those questions, like even if they are sensitive, and especially if you're asking them to a buyer's agent, because it is the buyer's responsibility to prove that they are a viable option. Like if you want to buy something, you should give whoever's selling it confidence that you can actually afford and close and perform on that thing. Any buyer that's motivated and acting in good faith should be more than willing to provide any information or credibility that they are the right person. So I would not shy away from asking those questions, especially when there's a buyer's agent involved. And that's where the lenders come into play, the third parties come into play. Like the team that's working together should be willing to provide whatever you're looking for.
No, that's a good point.
Really goes to show too the people around you matter. The third parties matter. Like Coby and I are in a deal right now that's supposed to close yesterday, but the escrow company that the seller decided to use just stopped working because they were too backed up after the fourth. Like they just started not answering any phone calls. The lender was looking to fund.
Oh my
Buyer
God.
wanted to put his funds in, and they just ghosted us completely. So your third parties matter. We were supposed to close yesterday, and it's delayed just because they chose not to work.
And you have to also remember, even if you have them tied up contractually, where they've removed their contingencies, they've shown you the lending paperwork, everything looks like it's in a good fashion. It's not closed until it's closed. And so setting expectations with your client, the seller, is really super essential from the beginning. I have one example from this last year. It was a 10-plex, and this will actually tend to happen when it's more of a business transaction, when it's an investment property, or especially on the commercial side. The lender was a fantastic lender and had everything set up, but essentially they had removed all their contingencies, and the lender said, "Hey, we're going to need another 3 weeks." And the buyer said, "We're going to need another 3 weeks." Now the seller had an opportunity to cancel at that time, had a right to cancel. But I had to have a very difficult conversation with the seller that it was not worth it to cancel. And so she had to think that through. It was when I say difficult, I mean, yeah, she's wondering, am I going to close this $2.2 million sale or not? Like, I thought we had all their contingencies. This should be guaranteed, right? No, actually, it's not. Yes, they could lose their EMD, but the reality is we can't really take their EMD. It's not us, obviously. The seller can't really take their EMD. They could just lock it up in escrow. And so this buyer knew that because they were experienced business operators, multifamily operators, and they basically said they were willing to tell us, "Hey, go pound sand." My response to him was essentially he was fuddling his offer. He changed his method. This is the little bit of leverage that we had in this transaction to get them to close only a week late instead of 3 weeks late, which again, not worth it for the seller to go back to market. Maybe seeking second position offers, but that's not very. Sorry, I'm getting a call. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
That's not very strong. Most buyers are not going to come into second position unless it's a super desirable property. In this case, we had sat on market for a while. This was the best offer we had. This buyer knew they had leverage over us. And so I had to set the expectations with the seller that we may have to lock up their EMD and cancel, but it's not in their best interest. But the leverage I had was that I was able to show him, and this was all verbally, I was able to show him that he started the whole process saying one thing on his original offer, but he changed his method of financing. And so I was able to leverage that and let him know that he was kind of in breach. He was in breach of contract there. It was not being forthcoming. And so he pressured his lender until he was even considering paying an extra $30,000 to get a bridge loan to close early because I was telling him we were going to cancel and we had the backing to cancel. So all that goes to say that the lesson here is that it's not closed until it's closed. And so that's why we have to have all of our ducks in a row contractually, and we have to be very careful with our questions on the front end to give it the highest chance of close and arm our sellers with leverage to push the buyers to move forward.
No, that's all great info. I do have one question. What you said, you would have been able to, you representing the seller, you would have been able to keep the earnest money deposit though if you wanted to walk, right?
So and actually I'd love if Coby could also speak to this right after. In short, we could keep it, but all we could do is the seller could not release it back to them, and it's stuck in escrow. And
Right.
that could then elicit a court battle
Yeah.
where they would say, no, that's our money, and here's why it's our money. So it's not as simple as they get the money.
And not only that, it'll cloud the
Okay.
title until you get it resolved.
Okay, that works.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Dana,
park
it's
at the
important to
front,
note.
like where the bar. Okay.
Coby, can you?
Craig, you're the host. Can you mute her?
Okay.
She's trying to sell,
Yeah,
guys.
no worries.
Craig, you should be able to mute.
Dana, it's important to note in those contracts, yeah, the EMD does not go directly to the seller if they don't perform an escrow closes. It's held by escrow and it goes to, I mean, maybe Craig knows more on this, but it goes to court, gets tied up, and then there's mediation, and then that could be, years down the line. We have some clients that don't even accept people's EMDs because they don't want to go through that process. But one thing that we see people doing, one thing that buyers do to kind of strengthen their offer is, let's say they reach a point in the deal where they feel comfortable enough that it's going to move forward and they want to give the seller peace of mind. Let's say they're asking for an extension or they're asking for something else during the deal,
right.
switching financing. What you can do is pass the EMD through to the seller during escrow. So let's say it's a $10,000 EMD, that $10,000 could be deposited into the seller's account and it's completely passed through so that if the deal does fall through, it's not held up in escrow and the seller gets to walk away with that cash. There is
That's interesting.
There is some, some risk or liability around that as well. Like if the buyer comes back after it, definitely some gray area there, but just so you know, like buyers can kind of strengthen a request mid-deal by saying, I'll pass my EMD through.
And on the seller side, in that transaction, that was another thing I hung over that buyer's head. Again, very experienced broker, by the way. It was his mother buying. They were very experienced and they're from LA. That was another thing I hung out there is look, one way we're going to agree to this 3 weeks is an early release of the full deposit, but he didn't want to go for that. So I was trying to give him options. So the early release of deposit, meaning it goes to the seller. So good luck ever getting that back. On the buyer side, if it's a property that you have buyers that they need to win out against other buyers, what Andrew's saying is it can very much strengthen your position to win the contract if you write in something along the lines. Every deal is different, right? So this is not like a blanket that can be used in any situation. But you could write in buyer shall release EMD at removal of physical inspection contingency to seller. So early release, like things like that could be very attractive to a seller, right? And that also speaks to your buyer needs to make sure they have their financing in check. Obviously it's risky, like Andrew's saying, that's not something that I would recommend you just willy-nilly throw out there. You need to think it through, probably talk to Coby or Andrew or whoever your mentor is, or Kim Case. Actually, Kim Case is fantastic at these discussions from a compliance standpoint. But I do that all the time, right? I have experience, but all the time I will call up Coby or Andrew or Craig or Kim with specific deals where it's like, oh, what could we do here to try and push this through? These things come up.
Great info. Thank you.
Back on some of the rehab stuff, as we're talking about from the listing perspective and vetting buyers. So on trying to make deals work on some of these rehab things, I was just wondering what kind of timelines you're generally seeing on, getting the appraiser to reply back with an after remodel appraised value and all that kind of thing, and what it looks like to be able to sell that option to a seller when we're looking at a seller who probably has an option that's maybe a little less, but is all cash and quick. and we're trying to sell them on the idea of, hey, maybe you can make 20 grand more or something by selling to our buyer who's wanting to do a rehab loan and keep it, and they don't need the same profit margin. But what are those timelines looking like, from the buy side as we're being scrutinized by a seller who's maybe concerned about considering that option? What does that kind of look like, Bill?
We always recommend 45-day escrow on a renovation loan, just because it does take a little bit longer. There's more irons in the fire, more things going on. So I mean, it is. Yeah, it's not the easiest sell against a cash offer for sure. It works a lot better on something that's been sitting on the market for a while.
Well, and Bill, what are rates like on those renovation loans? Because I think Zach might be talking about just your traditional bridge or like hard money as well.
Sure. I mean, on the conventional renovation loans, we're like mid to high sevens typically, for the FHA 203K loan or the Fannie Mae Freddie Mac renovation loans. Which as opposed to I think that the quote we got on the on this most recent one through the hard money channel was 9.5, I think.
And those are like 7 to 14 days.
Yeah, they're faster for sure. Yeah.
So that's kind of that answer there too, because if if speed is the issue that a seller is not willing to consider, then it's that question with our clients of going the hard money route. But if we do that, I assume we're looking at additional closing costs and different things like that the buyer's going to have to eat. But I guess I think maybe my bigger concern even is rate of close, like how confident, what does it look like to be able to be as confident as possible that it's gonna go? So we're selling a seller on the idea of like, hey, it's gonna take a little longer, but this is a pretty dang sure thing, and you're gonna net more because we can, outbid the cash iBuyer. But addressing that concern of, does that 45 days go by and unfortunately we couldn't make it work,
Yeah. And I mean, and honestly, like it doesn't always take 45 days. We can do them in 30 typically. But
how reasonably confident, I guess, are we able to get, up front? How picky are these, after rehab appraisals, that kind of stuff?
Right. I mean, that's really the key. Like once you have the appraisal, you have a good idea as to whether or not you're going to be able to, if it's going to work. And I think that you can do some of that work up front too. I mean, what is a home like this renovated on the market sell for? If it's, I mean, if the amount of money you're putting into it is just barely gonna like get it to the level of the homes that are rehabbed around it that are selling at that level, then it might not go very well. But if they're clearly going to be building some a chunk of equity into the property, that's the key piece, really. I mean, and then on the hard money deal, that's really what it is. That's all they're really looking at is like, is this thing, are you building equity into the house? Is it is it going to be, because it's usually for a fix and flip where you're fixing and flipping it, but a lot of people, if they want to keep the property, they're going to fix it, they're going to refinance out of the loan. But either way, they want to make sure, the lender wants to make sure that once the home is done, that the seller is going to be able to, or the buyer is going to be able to get out of the deal ahead of the game, or not, at least not lose money and find themselves in a spot where they can't get rid of the home, or they can't refinance the home. So the appraisal is really the key. The difference with the conventional loans is that they're going to be scrutinizing their income just like a regular mortgage. So it's the after repair value, and then they're also looking at their ability to repay, where on the hard money loan, the ability to repay isn't really a thing. It's just more about your credit and the how much value you're going to be building into the property.
Yeah, so it would seem to reason that providing those calculations to the listing agent of like, hey, here's my comps for after value and what our math is and why we're really confident that this isn't going to be an issue. It's a matter of, give us a bit more time, but
that's the way to sell it. And probably also it's probably good to have a hard money backup, just in case. That's a conversation to have with your client. Like, hey, if we run into a problem here, do you we have to go with this backup plan. Is this going to work for you?
That's true. And if they're on board for that, then being able to tell the seller that as well, that it's like,
exactly. Just like, hey, this is how they want to buy it. I mean, I don't know. The seller's probably going to be like, you just take the hard money loan, get it over with. But 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 I think that also if they've got something that's been sitting on the market for a while, it's like, hey, we want a 45-day close. This is what we're going to do. If we run into a problem here, then we'll close with this hard money option.
Yeah, because we're definitely I'm seeing a lot in my market where properties that are missing floors or have some broken cabinet doors or pretty basic things like that are going to flippers, and then they're coming up and it's kind of leapfrogging. If I've got clients that are maybe approved at 450 and those properties are selling at 370, but then they're coming back at 499, and so it's jumping over my clients kind of ability.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of that, and they're putting wallpaper on the Formica countertops that looks like marble and putting it back on the market. It's
if it's a minimal rehab, they have like an express version of the renovation loans through Fannie Freddie and FHA, and I believe if it's like $30,000 or less worth of work, then they issue the money on one draw. It's a faster, easier process if it's a lighter rehab.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I'm seeing, that it's 30 grand worth it, but it's coming back up 75 over, and it's just enough to bump some of these young clients out. So yeah.
Sweet.
Right. You want to talk about AI, Coby?
Yeah, I will. I won't bore everybody for a long time. I'll just kind of introduce some of the changes, let you guys play around with it, and maybe next week we'll do a deeper dive on it all because I know we're already almost at the hour mark. So, um, Craig, will you approve that? So we went through and kind of changed up a decent amount of what the system looked like, trying to simplify it a bit for you guys. Um, Instead of having just all the random tools and one-off like pieces off to the left, we try to kind of group it a little bit more and really start building them around the workflows in which you guys are going to be using them for. So the dashboard is still going to be very similar to how it was before. But now everything's going to be bucketed into either leads, sellers, buyers, promote, retain, and then just all tools. So if you guys want to just see all the tools and kind of pick and choose what you want, you're able to jump into this. But if you go into sellers, your listing presentations will live in here, your valuations live here, your net sheets live here, listings live here. On the buyer side, you have your saved searches, your pre-quals, your search links, and your tours all under the buyers tab. On the promote, circle prospecting, Google Ads, Meta Ads, social media. I'm trying to just reframe how you guys are able to use it to make it a little bit simpler to use, direct you guys more or less where to go. Yes, Josh.
Sorry, is it ready? Is it ready for us to share with clients?
Yes.
Okay.
Asterisk.
Perfect.
I would do a test on yourself first so you know how to use it and what it is used for. But yeah, we're using it for clients right now.
Sweet.
So in here, once again, presentations, valuations, everything for a seller. One thing we're really focused on building right now, and I would love your guys' feedback on, is building out the actual workflows. So if you're on the dashboard, you can see you have either a new seller, a new buyer, or if you just tab over at the top to workflows, the system will take you through like a step-by-step process on everything you should do for a new seller lead. So say you have a new seller that comes in, you met them at an open house, and you can come in here, click on new seller, start workflow, and then it'll take you through like each step that we recommend that you should be doing. And so obviously first you should do a listing presentation, home valuation link, create the net sheet, add your listing once you have the listing, launch a property website, and then promote the listing. And so the system will like walk you through step by step the 6 steps that we recommend doing with a new seller lead. If you have a new buyer, you can come in here, click either new buyer or go into the workflows, click over to new buyer, start the workflow. And we recommend starting with the pre-qual link. Back to the conversation from earlier, you don't want to be wasting your time with people who aren't pre-qualified. If you already know this person's buying cash or you already know they're pre-qualified, you can just skip the step. And then you set up their home search link. If you already have that set up, skip the step. You can set up a save search for them. Trying to just automate some of these workflows so you guys don't have to go bounce around all the different tools within link.ai. So once again, we won't take too much time today kind of running through each and every step, but if you guys want to come in here and create a test listing presentation, just go to sellers, presentations, new presentation, and then you can create it. I would say next Tuesday, we'll budget out a little bit more time to actually like do training on each one of these tools. But yeah, it's all live. It's all on app.link.ai. If you guys all want to kind of test it out throughout the week, throw some test clients on it, throw yourselves on it. Um, all of the tools are live. And Adam, if you're on APNs,
Yep, I'm here.
so you can do the valuations and the presentations and everything based on APN as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for updating that.
Yes. Any questions on link.ai, just in general as a tool, before we guys start testing it? Sweet. Everybody has access? Nobody needs access? Ryan, I approved you already, right when the call started. Sweet. All right. Well, yeah, go check that out, test it. Next week, we'll do more like a formal training on it and walking you guys through how to create the list presentations, how to create everything. With the new UI that we just rolled out today, it should be a lot more self-explanatory. So you guys should be able to just kind of use it and click around, and it should be easy enough to navigate. If it's not, let us know. Obviously, we'll keep making tweaks to it, but I think this new version of it will improve usability quite a bit.